My name is Maeve O'Regan, and I am a part-time PhD candidate in the School of Education, Trinity College Dublin. And my presentation today is on personal agency, technology and helpful others, learners' experiences of completing a PhD on a part-time basis. Now, the aim of this research was to explore learners' experiences of pursuing a PhD on a part-time basis. Now, why part-time PhDs? Well, 19% of PhD enrolments in Ireland are currently of part-time candidates, and there has been a 72% increase in part-time PhDs from 920 to 1,625 enrolments from the decade 2008 to 2018. The majority of research in doctoral education is on full-time learners' experiences, but the part-timer is different, as part-timers can have limited access to the academic institution due to often balancing doctoral studies with full-time work, and that's according to Watts 2008. So, what was challenging about this research is how do you explore the experiences of learners who've been described as invisible and absent from university life, Gardner 2008. So as I said, the majority of research in doctoral education is based on an assumption of the PhD candidate as full-time over 3 to 4 years and situated and socialised in the university, Gardner 2008. So what about the part-time PhD learner? How can we look at their experiences in light of limited presence within the academic institution and access to research communities? So the conceptual framework and research methodology I developed for the study was based on actor network theory, Latour 2005, and theories of agency, Archer 2003. The questionnaire explored learners' experiences of accessing doctoral programme support and information, face-to-face and online from the academic institution during different stages of the PhD. Now that's one of the benefits of actor network theory, is it doesn't just acknowledge the dynamic interaction between humans and other humans as influencing knowledge generation and transfer, but also looks at the role of non-human actors such as technology, documents and artifacts as influencing knowledge transfer and generation in addition to human contact. However, as my study really wanted to explore and give voice to the part-time PhD candidates who have been invisible to a large extent in doctoral education to date, I wanted to look at the role of agency, help seeking and actions that learners may have taken to progress their studies, either within their own life, personal world, working world, through accessing technology or sourcing help from friends, in addition to looking at their interaction with face-to-face and online resources in the academic institution. So that is why I used both of these theories. So I had a semi-structured interview which explored if learners experienced any barriers or enablers to PhD progression, personal, institutional or other, and what, if any, actions did individuals take to progress with the PhD. For example, demonstrating agency, seeking help, drawing on own resources, seeking online help as well as from individuals. So what did I find? Well, the part-time PhD experience is as individual as a fingerprint and is mediated in the context of varying levels of agency and access to supports, face-to-face and online, from sources inside and outside the university. So the key kind of influences were the supervisor, and for individuals who had a supervisor who was very experienced at bringing learners through to completion, both full and part-time PhD candidates, and was well established within the university and had access to different individuals, understood the system and the process and the guidelines. This was very, very helpful for learners with limited access to the academic institution. In fact, their key source of support, usually on a face-to-face basis, but also via email, was with the supervisor. And for others who maybe had a supervisor who was more inexperienced or new in terms of unfamiliar with the institution or the systems or the procedures, Many had difficulty accessing PhD guidelines and interpreting the process and the system. For example, one candidate who spoke to me said that the guidelines were difficult to navigate. A 100-page document was quite difficult to interpret, and that for this individual, she needed the help of an outsider, somebody who was an academic from a university in another country, who she sought help from in terms of interpreting what the different guidelines meant. So this was again on a face-to-face basis, but it was outside of the academic institution and supports available within that. Helpful others inside and outside of the university were key to individuals' experiences of progressing with and completing a PhD on a part-time basis. Examples were within the institution, peers, often a full-time PhD candidate who could maybe help with navigating the systems and the process and passing on information gained from training events and seminars that the part-timer may not have been able to attend. The library were deemed extremely helpful, student supports, and just key individuals, administrators and academic staff that the learner knew or had come across that could help them on a face-to-face basis to navigate the process. And then personal agency and own efforts were really key to progressing with and completing a PhD. So this is really a story of individuals who are very dependent, either within the academic institution or outside the academic institution, to a large part on face-to-face contact with key helpful people who could help them to navigate that process. However, I'm going to give you two stories of my participants who had very different experiences of navigating their part-time PhD to completion. So Matthew's quote was, "I was in the institution so often that I was invited to a staff party." And Matthew is surrounded by people. So Matthew's interaction within the academic institution was on a face-to-face basis with academic staff and peers. He had a very structured process in terms of PhD modules, and each year he had an assessment which allowed him to progress from year to year and got feedback on his PhD. It was like a mini Viva and involved a panel of academic staff. So his experience was very connected. He also had a lot of experience had worked for many years and had developed very good project management and time management skills, and had a real routine and self-discipline around the time he spent on his PhD and his focus in terms of working on his thesis. The helpful others that Matthew encountered were self-generated peer network, both with full-time and online, or full-time and part-time PhDs from different universities, and that was on a face-to-face basis. He came across a group of people, and they all were quite isolated within their own institutions, and they came together and they worked together, and in the end they actually put together a conference. So that's a real example of helpful others and then personal agency in seeking out those sources of support. Now, in contrast, we have Elaine, and my picture of Elaine shows Elaine on her own with a computer, and Elaine's experience of the PhD was very isolated in terms of face-to-face contact and very much navigated through accessing support from online PhD forums. So Elaine's experience, I depended on the kindness of strangers from online PhD forums. Her interaction with the academic institution was very limited. She worked in a full-time job, and the PhD qualification was not particularly valued or supported by management, and so she really didn't have time to go into campus during the day, network with others and meet her supervisor, and she didn't know anybody else who was going through a PhD process in work, so she had no peer network and it was very isolated. Her experience was very much about resilience and sheer determination. The helpful others that Elaine sought were a self-generated peer network via an online doctoral forum. As she said, strangers from around the world, the UK, USA and Australia, just helping each other out. So this is an example of somebody whose the dynamic interaction with others was online with people she had never met, but helped her to navigate the different stages and successfully complete her PhD. So the implications from this research then is supporting learners at a social and physical distance from the HEI campus. We can learn a lot from those who have already been in this position, which is the part-time PhD candidates. And the recommendations include exploring how technology can support face-to-face interaction for learners with limited access to campus-based supports during 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. working day, and learning from the experiences of non-traditional individuals such as part-time PhD candidates to bridge the gap between Zoom and Room to enhance connectivity and sense of belonging. So if we can reflect on our experiences of working, teaching and learning in a climate of COVID since March 2020, we can learn how we have navigated that space in the absence of others. What role has technology played? And how can we harness these experiences to future-proof higher education for all? Thank you, and if you have any further questions, please contact me for further details, and my email is galam23@tcd.ie. Thank you.